Hey everybody. So we're at a very interesting time in multifamily. After years of basically nonstop growth, we're seeing some pullback in some markets. So the way we are assessing prospects and lead flow is really important right now. So I have asked Sarah Gencarella, VP of Marketing at Olympus Property, to jump in here with me and talk about how they assess leads. Sarah, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
So let's kind of just jump right into it. I know that you all probably have a lot of lead sources. Can you describe your overall top lead approaches?
Yeah, absolutely. So from an organic perspective, that's going to be our top priority right now at Olympus. And we find that organic leads are actually our top converting leads. So we've invested a lot into our websites and our digital advertising as well. Getting people to our websites is our ultimate goal. We find that once we can get someone there, we have a captive audience. They're much more likely to book that tour, look at our photos, look at our floor plans, come in tour and sign a lease. But we also do supplement our advertising with a lot of different ILS providers, some more on the traditional side, some that are a little bit newer to the industry. And we do prefer ones that offer more flexible packages so that we can really supplement where we need to for certain properties in certain markets. And as a result, we steer away from long-term contracts, but rather pay per lead, pay per lease models are something that we really highly value, or ones that have a nominal amount of spend, but that we can increase and boost as need be based on property performance.
Very cool. So when we dig into the organic side of things, so I'm assuming we're talking about Google and talk about how the landscape is changing or how you're approaching Google ad spend or Google, your approach to Google in general.
Absolutely. So I'm sure, as everyone is now aware, Google's algorithm has changed drastically over the past year and a half, and their focus is no longer so much on the keywords that are built into websites, the blogging, all of that for SEO purposes, but they're focused more on the user experience, which means the load speed of the page or the clutter of the page, things like that. And so we've really switched our focus to that as well, making all of our sites extremely mobile friendly. I almost like to say mobile only versus mobile friendly because most people are on their phones 80% of the time and on desktop 20% of the time. So if they can't accomplish it on their phone, what's the likelihood that they're going to go back and do that same action on their desktop? So that's been a huge focus for us as well. And then on the organic side of things, we've also really beefed up our Google business listings. I think Google, in my opinion, Google wants to become its own ILS platform. They've done it for a lot of other industries, so apartments is naturally going to be next. And so we're making sure that people can find out all of the same information that they would on one of our websites, on one of our Google business profiles. So whether that is having all of the photos, the videos, the 3D tours, the products with our floor plan images, we have a Q&A section. We seed questions and answer them. We have different specials that might be going on. So all of that same information that is housed on our website can be found on our Google business profile, so people can easily access that information about the community.
I love that. So you're making it accessible for the prospect wherever they happen to be. They don't have to be on your website, but if they are covered, if they're on Google, they can get all the information they need. So tell me about how you're adapting your marketing efforts relative to any changes that you're seeing in the market from a lead prospect perspective.
Yes, so one of the things that I think we heavily rely on is our vendor relationships and our vendor partners. So there's ILS vendors in the space. There's also vendors that help support us while we build out our Google business profiles, while we make sure our data is consistent across all different platforms, whether that's ILSs, organic platforms, websites, etc. So just valuing those relationships and seeing our vendors as partners rather than as more of a client-vendor relationship, and then also performing consistent audits. Technology is never going to be perfect. Things are going to break, and making sure that we're staying on top of that proactively is something that's really important for us as well. And then I think we've also really focused on the visual side of things. This year, my team and I, we really want to emphasize video content. So we're starting to create more reels and video content for our prospects to consume. One of the things that's really interesting is you see the ever-changing consumer behavior. People want immediate gratification. So whether that is seeing a short video with a tour of a floor plan or being able to book a tour and lock that in without picking up the phone, adapting to that change in consumer behavior is a big focus for us right now.
So let's dig into the ILS side of things, because I know a lot of people they find it challenging to get the most out of their ILS experience. So every ILS handles this process a bit different. Some are charging for leads, some are charging for leases, and they differ in what role they fill in the conversion aspect of the prospect. So how do you evaluate different ILSs based upon that?
So it's very interesting. It's changed a little bit over the years, but right now we're really focused on overall lease velocity and our cost per lease. And there are multiple different approaches to it. We definitely look at multi-touch attribution, first touch, all the things that play into the renter's journey, and then what actually converts someone. But at the end of the day, we really want to figure out what attracted that prospect to our community in the first place. So we're not only looking at total lead volume, but we're looking at lead quality and then the total leases that we get and the cost per lease with that. So every single year when we go through the budgeting process, we look at it on a per property and a per market basis of what is working best, different ILS platforms that are converting at different rates, and how we can use them in our portfolio to best support our leasing efforts.
So I want to get into lead quality in just a moment. Before we do though, have you changed your strategy on ad spend over time based upon the metrics that you are seeing on lead conversion, some of those conversion metrics you're talking about?
Absolutely. We implemented a CRM system a little over 5 years ago now, and it has drastically impacted the way that we have spent our marketing dollars. We were able to see after the first year of implementing it, accurate data on a per source basis. Where are we actually getting our leads from? What are we actually spending? What is the actual cost per lead and cost per lease? Rather than just kind of blindly having those numbers based on what somebody said when they walked in the door and said, "Where did you hear about us?" So we had more accurate data, and that allowed us to pull back from a lot of the traditional ILS platforms where you're locked into a 12 or 24-month contract at a certain rate that you don't have adjustment or the ability to adjust, and maybe you're not getting a single lease from that platform. Why are you spending a couple $1,000s a month on it? So when we realized we had the opportunity to focus more on flexible spend, such as pay per lease models or Google PPC and Google display ads and social advertising, where we can adjust the amounts on a monthly basis, we were actually able to lower our overall marketing spend as a company, and then also invest more in other technologies that help us nurture leads or offer self-guided tours because we weren't locked into those longer term contracts. And then our lead volume has not only stayed the same, and our lease volume has not only stayed the same, but it's gone up even through the COVID years, just because of these strategy changes that we were able to make.
So let's talk about that adjustment aspect. So I'm sure that some of your properties are, maybe they're fully occupied. I mean, you're just good to go there. Don't really need a whole bunch of lead volume there. And other properties may really be struggling. They just need extra push. How do you approach the difference when it comes to ILS spend there?
Absolutely. So I think we always want kind of a standard. We want to make sure leads are always coming in. People always know about the property, no matter the occupancy level. But one of our big focuses over the past couple of years has been increasing those rates and making sure that we are increasing renewal rates and getting new people in the door. And so keeping occupancy not at 100%, but at that sweet spot where we can raise the rates and have the strategic spend on our ILS platforms. We work hand in hand with the asset management team here at Olympus to really optimize what spend we're using and then see what the ROI is in terms of bringing people through the door.
That's great. Yeah, you always hear if you are 100% occupied, that just means that your rents are high enough, and so
Right.
you're not optimizing your potential economic rents. Okay, so describe how. Let's dig into reporting for a moment, and let's talk about how what role reporting plays into an ILS partnership, and specifically, you mentioned some metrics. Like what type of data do you find to be most helpful, most actionable, that sort of thing?
Absolutely. So on our side of things, with our CRM system, we have the ability to see conversion data. And we're always looking at your prospect to visit ratios, your visit to application ratios, and then your prospect to application ratios overall. What's interesting though is what we can't see from our side of things is the impressions that our listings are getting, the number of listing views, people that are landing on those listings, people that are filling out the forms on them, the number of tour bookings that we're getting from those listings, and then the clicks to website, if the ILS platform even offers that option based on the package level that we're at, and then also user demographics. So we heavily rely on our ILS partners to provide that information to us on a monthly and quarterly basis to see where we're performing. And one of the things I really like to dig into and identify is the top 5 to 10 performing properties in our portfolio, and then the bottom 5 to 10 performing properties. And I think you can learn a lot from what is doing well on ILS platforms and apply that to the ones that might not be doing as well. Maybe we should change up the photo order. Maybe, something's broken on the listing. Maybe the pricing and availability somehow is messed up or something like that. And so looking at that, constantly evaluating what's doing well, what's working, and what's not doing well based on the data that they can provide us.
So when we were talking a while back, you had mentioned something about how one of the ILS providers had provided you specialized data, especially reporting, to help things, to give you more awareness about how to do ad spend. Can you give me an example of what that was all about?
Yes. So we work closely with Zillow Rentals as one of our partners, and they can provide us with not only our historical data, but also average market data. And so they can predict the amount of leases that we would get from their platform in, say, a Houston market versus a San Antonio market. And looking at that really helped us when we were rolling out this platform, be able to budget for the needs for each property. Are we going to get 2 leases per month at our Houston property, or are we going to get 1 lease every other month at our San Antonio property? And again, those are just examples, but the type of data that they were able to provide really helped us be in line with our budgets and monitor spend so that we wouldn't be over or under in our marketing spend on that way.
So you mentioned quality leads before that, and I feel like, especially over the last several years, there's been much more of a, hey, we have enough leads, we need better leads, we need more higher quality leads. But a lot of people, the definition of what a quality leads can vary. What is a qualified or quality lead varies dramatically amongst people. So how would you define what does a quality lead look like, and how do you assess your ILS sources based upon that?
So I like to look at it 5 different ways for a quality lead. So the perfect lead is somebody that is going to want to move within the time frame that we have available, which is typically 60 days. We require a 60-day notice. Somebody who's going to meet the income requirements, typically that's 3 times your monthly rent. Eviction history, credit, criminal background, all those things check out. People that are responsive to our communication clearly shows their intent. And then somebody that wants to come in and tour. And that's obviously in a perfect world, a perfect scenario. But, as long as somebody has the majority of those metrics, then that is going to be the perfect lead in our opinion. I think the reason that we focus so much on lead quality is because we know our teams are busy. We want to give them time back in their day. And if somebody's not likely to convert as a lead and they spend hours following up with somebody who never responds to them, that's wasted time, wasted hours, and actually wasted finances as well, because they're wasting their time on that. So we assess lead quality, again, by the prospect to application ratio. And ideally, that's going to be 10% or above. So sources that can meet that that's very telling of us what is a good and well-performing source. I would say for the majority of our sources, the highest converting ones are going to be your organic ones. Resident referral, always a top converting source for us. Word of mouth, there's nothing like that. If your friend lives at the community, you probably have a much better say of the community as well. And then preferred employers and organic Google traffic and website traffic, those are our top converting sources. But from an ILS perspective, across the Olympus portfolio, Zillow actually does have the highest prospect to lease ratio for us out of platforms that we use portfolio wide, which has been instrumental to see. We've only really engaged with them for the past 2 years now, and it's based on data that we've been able to get from that they've helped provide us, and that we've gotten from our CRM system as well, that we've been able to roll them out, and that they've been so successful at a great price per lease for our portfolio.
Yeah, because I would imagine that if you're doing a lead to application ratio, is there some element of the relative cost, right? So that, if you have somebody who is much less expensive, but they also have a much fewer leads to application, maybe that balances out. Does that make sense at all?
Yep. Absolutely. And something that you have to look at as well, which is a little bit more granular, is the net leasing velocity. So you might get somebody that applies, but they might be denied. They might cancel their application because they applied to 3 other places as well. And so looking at the prospect to net lease ratio is something that is really important to us. And Zillow did outperform in that area from an ILS perspective as well.
And so kind of what you were talking about before, where the responsiveness of somebody, that's an element of whether they're quality. And if some ILSs, it's a scenario where the prospect is clicking on your property because they want information about your property, and other scenarios where they've just entered their details, like I need a 2-bedroom in this area that's pet friendly, and that ILS is then sharing that lead with a lot of different properties, but they may not have ever actually chosen your property. So it's kind of a little bit more cold, I guess. Like, how do you approach those 2 different scenarios?
That's actually something that we're transparently working through right now, because it's something that we've always tried to figure out the best way to approach it. You can always encourage, proactive follow-ups from on-site teams, but there's only so many hours in the day. And so we're looking at exploring different lead nurturing tools that can help kind of pre-qualify some of those colder leads, so to speak, before they hit our on-site team members. And then we're also looking at maybe putting together a guide of these sources. Please focus on them first. They tend to have the highest quality of leads. But again, that's something that we're working through right now, and welcome feedback from anyone else in the industry that has been able to tackle that issue.
Yeah, anybody watching this, comment below and share us how you all approach these different metrics and lead conversion aspects. One more thing before we go, and I'd like to hear something that's, we always talk about metrics and we're really focused on those. Are there any intangible aspects that you look for or you find valuable when it comes to partnering with a different ILS?
So for me, communication and transparency is the thing that I value the most in any vendor partnership, no matter what the vendor. And openness to feedback, transparency, being able to share with each other ways to improve, I think is huge. And if it all goes back to your attitude. If you're willing to change, willing to improve, you can always make it happen. And so I think that's what we value the most in all of the partnerships that we have with our vendors. People that do proactive audits are willing to help us out with changes that we want to make, taking the heavy lift off of our small team. Knowing the product inside and out too, it really helps when a vendor knows exactly what might be going on in the back end, what's broken, what would be best to help improve our performance, and being able to communicate those things to us. At the end of the day, a vendor that realizes that their client's success equals their success as well is super important, because it's a two-way street. We're helping each other out, and I think it's really important to realize that.
It's interesting because, so for some of our clients, we might think, hey, they should really try doing this. I'm sometimes hesitant to give feedback because I don't want it to be offensive or insulting or something like that. But you're saying that you like that feedback to say, hey, this is a better way to use our service and get more out of it.
Absolutely. I think it's a two-way street. And one of the things that we pride ourselves in at Olympus is we've been able to start and pilot a lot of platforms that, are newer companies getting off the ground, up and running, and give them feedback and help build their product to something that we find true value in from day one. And it's definitely a two-way street because we can always help each other improve.
That's fantastic. Sarah, thank you so much for taking time with me today. It's been very enlightening. And everybody, share it in the comments. Let us know what you all think about how you're approaching leads in this climate today. And we'd love to hear from you. And take care. Have a great one. Bye.
Thank you.